Isaiah's hands trembled as he held the sandwich. Half a turkey sub, wrapper torn, pulled from a parked trash can 20 minutes ago. Still cold from the bin, the dog limped closer, ribs showing through matted brown fur, one back leg dragging, eyes locked on the food. 3 days. That's how long it had been since Isaiah's last meal. The dog whined, low, desperate, the same sound Isaiah's stomach had been making since Tuesday. He looked at the sandwich, then at the dog, then at his own hands, scarred knuckles, calloused palms, the hands of a 75-year-old man who'd once carried a rifle for his country. The dog sat, tail tucked, waiting. Isaiah's throat tightened, his vision blurred at the edges. The cold bit through his 3 layers of coats, 14 degrees, felt like 0. He exhaled slow, the dog's ears perked. Isaiah lowered the sandwich. His arm shook. The bread touched frozen ground. The dog lurched forward, started eating, fast, frantic. Isaiah turned his face away, swallowed, tasted nothing but copper. That's when the stranger moved. The man on the bench across from him, the one who'd been sitting there in silence, leaned forward. His lips parted, mouth forming words. But before Isaiah could hear, what happened next? Why would a 75-year-old veteran choose a starving dog over himself? Keep watching to find the answer, because what you're about to witness will change how you see the world forever. 3 days earlier, the cold had been different, manageable, survivable. Isaiah woke that morning to gray light filtering through the overpass. His breath came out in thick clouds. He'd slept through worse winters. Korea, Germany. Nights so cold your rifle froze to your hands. But when he pressed his palm against the metal grate beneath him, he knew. The heat vent was dead. No hum, no warmth, nothing. He sat up. His back screamed. 75 years of wear, the last 5 spent sleeping on concrete and cardboard. Around him the city stirred, traffic building overhead, footsteps on the sidewalk 30 feet away, people walking past without looking down. Isaiah folded his cardboard mat, slowly, precisely, corners aligned, edges sharp, the same way he'd folded his bunk blanket at Fort Benning 50 years ago. His hands shook as he smoothed the creases, not from cold, from hunger. He tucked the cardboard under his arm and stood. His knees popped. His left hip sent a wire of pain up his spine. Bravo Company doesn't quit. He didn't say it out loud this time. Just thought it. Let it sit in his chest like a stone. The small American flag patch on his coat shoulder, hand-sewn, frayed but intact, caught his eye. He touched it, felt the threads. Sergeant Isaiah Brennan, U.S. Army, honorably discharged, homeless. 5 years ago, the apartment fire took everything, his papers, his proof, his wife's photo, the DD-214 that said he'd served. The VA said they'd send a replacement. He called for 6 months, then stopped. No papers meant no benefits. No benefits meant no apartment. Isaiah looked at the dead vent, felt the cold seeping deeper. He couldn't stay here, not without heat. The temperature was dropping, single digits tonight. He needed food, needed somewhere warm before dark. Isaiah pulled his wool cap lower, adjusted his scarf, a strip of torn blanket wrapped around his neck, checked his pockets. Empty except for a half-frozen water bottle and the dog-eared photo of Sarah he'd saved from the fire. The edges were burned, her smile still there. He stepped out from under the bridge. The wind hit him like a fist. His eyes watered, but he walked, one foot, then the other, the way they taught him in basic. Downtown was 6 blocks away, There'd be people, trash cans. Maybe someone threw away something edible. Maybe. Isaiah kept his head down, watched his boots, cracked leather, soles held with duct tape, hit the pavement. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm steadied him. He didn't look at the people passing. Eye contact made them uncomfortable, made them see him. Most days he was invisible. Today that was fine. The park was 4 blocks north. He'd find something there, a bench in the sun, something to eat from the bins near the food trucks. One more day. His hip ached, his stomach cramped, his fingers went numb inside his gloves, but his feet kept moving. Left, right, left, right. The smell hit Isaiah first. Bread, fresh bread, yeast and butter, and something sweet. It poured out through the vents of Golden Crust Bakery like a memory he couldn't quite place. He stopped on the sidewalk, watched through the window. Inside, a young man in a white apron pulled trays from the oven. Steam rose, golden rolls, perfect rows. Isaiah's stomach twisted so hard he had to grip the parking meter. 3 days. He looked at the dumpster around the side. Too far? Cameras probably. And they locked them now. Everyone did. His eyes went back to the window. Behind the counter, a rack of day-old pastries sat near the register. 50% off. 50% of something he couldn't afford anyway. He took a breath, walked to the door. The warmth inside hit his face like a slap. His eyes watered. The man behind the counter looked up. His smile died. "We don't—" He stopped. "Can I help you?" Isaiah's mouth was dry. "I'm not asking for money, just anything you're throwing out." The man, Derek, his name tag said, set his phone down. "We donate our day-olds to the shelter." "I know. They're full." Derek crossed his arms. "I can't just—" "I'm a veteran." The words came before Isaiah could stop them. Sergeant, Army, just what you'd throw away. Derek's eyes flicked to the flag patch on Isaiah's shoulder. Something moved across his face. Irritation. "I can't help you." Isaiah's hands shook. He shoved them in his pockets. "Please." Derek glanced toward the back, lowered his voice. "If I give you something, I'll have 10 more people in here tomorrow. I won't come back." That's what they all say. They. Isaiah felt the word like a boot to the chest. He nodded, turned toward the door. "Wait, out this way." Isaiah stopped. Derek opened the door to the alley. For a second, Isaiah thought, but Derek wasn't holding food. He was holding a hose. "I'm sorry, but you need to go." The water was cold, shockingly cold. It hit Isaiah's legs, soaked through his jeans in seconds. He stumbled back, but Derek kept spraying, aimed at his boots, his coat, like he was washing something filthy off the concrete. "Go! I'm serious. Go, or I'm calling the cops." Isaiah's feet moved. His boots squelched. Water ran into his socks. His jeans clung to his legs, already stiffening. Behind him, the door slammed. Isaiah kept walking. Didn't look back. Didn't look at the people staring. His hands curled into fists inside his pockets. He could still do it. 50 years ago, he could have dropped Derek with one hit. Left cross. Clean. But he didn't. 14 degrees, wet jeans, water freezing in his boots. A voice rose in his head. Soft, his mother's voice. "Baby, when your hands are empty, that's when you got room to catch blessings." She'd said it when he was 7. They'd lost the house. He'd cried because he had to leave his bike behind. She'd held his face, smiled that sad smile. When your hands are empty, you got room to catch blessings. He hadn't understood then. He didn't understand now. What blessings! His feet were numb, his legs ached. The park was 2 blocks ahead. Bare branches against gray sky. Sun there. A bench. He focused on that. 1 block, then another. His boots were too heavy. His jeans pulled at his legs with every step. But he made it. The park opened up. Brown grass, empty benches, a trash can near the path. Isaiah headed for the bench closest to a patch of sunlight. He sat, his legs nearly gave out. The sun touched his face, barely warm, but something. He looked at his boots. Water pooled around the soles. If he didn't dry them, he'd lose his toes by tonight. Isaiah pulled off his right boot, peeled off the sock. His foot was pale, wrinkled. He wrung out the sock, held it to the weak sunlight. Pathetic. He put it back on. Wet or dry, it was all he had. He was pulling his boot back on when he saw it, the trash can, 10 feet away, sticking out of the top, a wrapper, yellow and red, Subway. Isaiah's heart kicked. He stood, walked over, looked inside. A sandwich, half of one, turkey. Lettuce wilted, but there, wrapped in paper. Someone had thrown it away, but it was food. Isaiah reached in, pulled it out. The bread was cold. A little soggy on one edge, but it wasn't moldy. It was food. He turned, walked back to the bench, sat down, unwrapped the sandwich slowly. 3 days. He was about to lift it to his mouth when he noticed, across from him, 20 feet away, another bench, a man sitting there, coat pulled tight, hands in his pockets, hat low, watching. Isaiah froze. How long had he been there? The man didn't move, didn't speak, just sat, still as stone. Isaiah's grip tightened on the sandwich. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Isaiah looked down at the food in his hands, and everything that came next started right there. Isaiah's fingers were stiff. He tried to unwrap the sandwich, but his hands wouldn't cooperate. His thumb slipped. He nearly dropped it. He caught it against his chest, waited for his fingers to wake up. They didn't. The cold had settled deep now, past his skin, into the bones. He looked down at his hands, pale, waxy. The nails had a faint blue tint at the edges. Not good. He flexed his hands slowly. Pain shot up his wrist, but at least he could feel it. He unwrapped the sandwich. Took longer than it should have. His fingers felt thick, clumsy. The bread was cold and damp. The turkey looked gray, but it was food. He was about to lift it to his mouth when his eyes caught movement. The man across from him shifted, pulled his coat tighter. Isaiah's body went still. How long had the man been sitting there? He tried to think back. When he'd sat down, when he'd pulled the sandwich from the trash, had the bench been empty then? He couldn't remember. His thoughts felt sluggish. The man didn't look away, didn't pretend to check his phone, just sat there, hands in his pockets, hat pulled low, breath coming out in white clouds. Real breath, real cold, not a hallucination. Isaiah's chest tightened. The sandwich felt heavier in his hands. The man's face was calm, no tension, no twitching, no hunger in his eyes. Just stillness. It unsettled Isaiah more than aggression would have. He shifted on the bench, his wet jeans pulled at his legs, his boots squelched. The man's eyes followed the movement. Isaiah's grip tightened on the sandwich. If the man rushed him, Isaiah wasn't sure he could stand fast enough. His jaw started to tremble, his teeth knocked together. Once. Twice. He clamped his mouth shut, but the shaking spread into his shoulders. The man tilted his head slightly, like he was studying something. Isaiah wanted to say something, but his tongue felt thick, and the man's stillness made words feel wrong. So Isaiah just sat there. The sun slipped behind a cloud. Isaiah's hands shook harder. He looked at the sandwich, tried to bring it to his mouth. His fingers were too stiff. The bread slipped. He caught it again, barely. He needed to eat, needed the calories, but his hands wouldn't obey. The man across from him leaned forward, just an inch. Isaiah's pulse kicked. Then, from somewhere behind the bench, a sound, soft, low, a whimper. Isaiah's head turned, slow. Everything was slow now. From the bushes at the edge of the park, something moved, small, brown, limping, a dog. Isaiah's breath caught. The dog's ribs showed through its fur. Its back leg dragged, twisted at an odd angle. Each step an effort, and its eyes, dark, desperate, were fixed on a sandwich in Isaiah's hands. The trembling in Isaiah's chest stopped, not from warmth, from something else, recognition. He knew that look. He'd seen it in the mirror every morning for 5 years. The dog stopped 3 feet away, sat, its tail curled tight. It didn't beg, didn't bark, just looked at him, waited. Isaiah's throat closed. The man across from him hadn't moved, still watching, still silent. The dog's breath came out in small clouds. Its body shook. Isaiah looked at the sandwich in his stiff, blue-tinged hands. 3 days since his last meal. But the dog, how long had it been for the dog? His hands stopped shaking, not because of warmth, because something deeper than cold had just taken hold. The dog didn't move closer, just sat there, 3 feet away, body low to the ground, head tilted slightly, watching the sandwich. Isaiah's teeth started chattering, hard, uncontrollable. His jaw shook so violently he had to clench it shut, but the tremors ran down his neck anyway. The cold wasn't just in his hands anymore. It was everywhere, in his chest, his lungs. Every breath felt like swallowing ice. He looked at the dog, then at the sandwich, then back at the dog. The animal's ribs moved with each breath, in and out. The bones pressed against the fur so clearly, Isaiah could count them. The dog's legs trembled, not from cold, from weakness. The back leg hung at a wrong angle, useless. How long had it been out here? Isaiah's stomach cramped, a sharp twist that made him double forward slightly. 3 days. 3 days since he'd eaten. His body was eating itself now. He could feel it, the weakness in his legs, the fog in his head. If he didn't eat, he wouldn't make it through the night. But the dog looked worse. Isaiah's hands tightened on the sandwich, the bread compressed under his stiff fingers. He tried to lift it to his mouth. Got it halfway there. His arms shook. He looked at his hands. They were wrong. The skin had gone past pale, waxy white now, bluish at the knuckles, like meat left too long in a freezer. He flexed his fingers. They moved, but barely. This is bad. The dog whimpered, softer. Its eyes didn't leave the food. Isaiah lowered the sandwich, rested it on his lap. His whole body was shaking now. His shoulders, his legs. The cold had its teeth in him. He looked at the dog, really looked, the matted fur, the scarred muzzle. The way its ears flattened when a car drove by, waiting for pain, for someone to kick it, for the world to hurt it again. Isaiah knew that posture. He'd stood that way outside the VA office, outside the shelter, outside the bakery 30 minutes ago, waiting for the world to remember you existed. The dog's body shivered, a long tremor that started at its head and ran down to its tail. Isaiah's throat tightened. He thought about his hands, the hands that had carried an M16 through rice paddies, the hands that had folded the flag at Sarah's funeral, the hands that had signed discharge papers. Honorably, they'd said. These hands, blue-white, stiff, useless. What good were they now? The dog shifted, not closer, just adjusting its weight off the bad leg. Its breath came out in small clouds, fast, shallow. Isaiah's jaw clenched. His teeth knocked together again. He was going to die out here, maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. He'd known it for a while. The dog blinked, slow. Its eyes were brown, dark, old eyes in a young body. Isaiah's chest ached. He looked at the sandwich again. Half a sub, turkey and wilted lettuce, pulled from a trash can, his last meal. He thought about eating it, the brief warmth it might give, the extra hour of life it might buy. One of them would eat tonight, one of them wouldn't. That was the choice. The dog didn't beg, didn't bark or whine or crawl forward, just waited, patient. Isaiah's hands stopped shaking, not because he was warmer. He was colder than he'd ever been. But something in his chest went still. He looked at his hands again, the blue-white fingers, the stiff joints, hands that had held rifles, held his wife, held his dignity when everything else got stripped away. What were they supposed to hold now? The dog's ribs moved, in, out. Isaiah's breath steadied. He thought about Sarah, the way she used to sit food out for the stray cats behind their apartment. He'd told her they couldn't afford it. She'd smiled, set it down anyway. You don't need much to be rich, she'd said, just enough to share. He hadn't understood then. Isaiah looked at the man on the other bench, still watching what he'd do, watching what kind of man he was. Isaiah's hands moved, slow, deliberate. He lifted the sandwich, not to his mouth, down, toward the ground. His arm shook, his fingers barely gripped. But he lowered it, inch by inch. The dog's ears perked, its body tensed. Isaiah set the sandwich on the frozen ground between them. His hands were so stiff he almost couldn't let go, but he forced them, pulled his hands back, rested them on his knees. The blue-white knuckles, the trembling wrists. Empty now. The dog waited, 5 seconds, 10, like it didn't believe. Then it moved, not fast, careful, limped forward on 3 legs, sniffed the sandwich once, then ate, fast, desperate, tearing at the bread, gulping down chunks without chewing. The way things eat when they've forgotten what food tastes like. Isaiah turned his head, looked away, couldn't watch. His stomach twisted so hard he thought he might be sick, but there was nothing in him to come up. His jaw chattered, his whole body shook. The cold pressed in from all sides now. No food, no warmth, no hope. Just the sound of the dog eating behind him, and the man across the way, still watching, still silent. Isaiah closed his eyes, let the cold take him, felt it sink deeper, into his bones, into the hollow spaces where food should have been. He'd made his choice. Now he'd live with it. Or he wouldn't. His stomach twisted, a sharp, vicious cramp that doubled him forward, his body screaming at him. What did you just do? He swallowed, tasted copper. His throat burned. Behind him, the sounds continued, teeth scraping paper, the dog's breath coming in short, desperate huffs, the wet sound of swallowing. Isaiah pressed his palms against his thighs. The trembling had spread everywhere now, his shoulders, his chest, his jaw chattering so hard his teeth knocked together. He looked at his hands, blue-white, stiff, the knuckles like wax. The cold was inside him now, not just on his skin, deeper, in his blood, in his bones, in the hollow spaces where warmth used to be. He thought about the night ahead, 14 degrees, no food, wet clothes still damp from the bakery. He might not wake up tomorrow. The thought sat in his chest, heavy, final. He'd made his choice. Now he'd live with it, or he wouldn't. The dog finished eating. Isaiah heard it lick the ground where the sandwich had been, then silence. He turned his head slightly. The dog sat there, still 3 feet away. Its tail gave a single, weak wag. Then it limped closer. 1 step, 2. It pressed its body against Isaiah's leg. Warmth, actual warmth. The dog's ribs moved against his knee with each breath. Isaiah's throat closed. He lifted one stiff hand. Let it rest on the dog's head. The fur was matted, rough, but warm. The dog didn't pull away. Isaiah's vision blurred. He blinked, felt something hot slide down his cold cheek. He didn't wipe it away. His mother's voice rose in his head again, clearer this time. When your hands are empty, that's when you got room to catch blessings. He still didn't understand. What blessing? He was going to die out here, alone, frozen. Another homeless veteran in the city would scrape off a bench in the morning. The dog's body shook against his leg, not from fear, from exhaustion, from relief. Isaiah kept his hand on its head, felt the warmth, the life. At least one of them would make it through the night. That was something. The man across from him shifted. Isaiah had almost forgotten he was there. He looked up. The stranger was leaning forward now, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, watching, still watching. Isaiah wanted to say something, but his tongue felt thick, and a cold had taken his words. The stranger's lips moved. Isaiah couldn't hear it first. The wind took the sound. Then the man spoke again, louder, clear. You already gave everything, Sergeant. Isaiah's body went rigid. Sergeant. The word hit him like a fist. That's why. The stranger's voice was calm, steady, like he was stating a fact, not a question, not a guess, a fact. Isaiah's hand slipped from the dog's head. His breath caught in his chest. How did he? The stranger stood, slowly, his coat pulled tight against the wind, but his eyes never left Isaiah's face. Isaiah tried to speak, his mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. The park went silent, not just quiet, silent. The traffic noise from the street faded, the wind stopped. Even the dog went still against his leg, like the world had paused. The stranger took 1 step forward, then stopped. You already gave everything, he said again, softer this time. Your service, your home, your wife, your proof. Isaiah's chest tightened. Your proof, the DD-214, the papers that burned. The discharge document that said he'd served. That said he mattered. The stranger knew. You gave it all, the man continued, and just now you gave the last thing you had. Isaiah's hand started shaking again, not from cold, from something else. That's why you're here, Sergeant. The word again. Sergeant, said with respect, with recognition. Isaiah's vision blurred. His throat burned. He tried to swallow but couldn't. The stranger's expression didn't change. Calm, kind, like he understood something Isaiah didn't. You think no one sees you, the man said quietly, but you're wrong. The air felt heavy, thick. Isaiah's lungs struggled to pull it in. The dog pressed closer to his leg, its warmth the only real thing left. Isaiah's lips moved, finally, a whisper, barely audible. Who? But the stranger shook his head, a small movement, almost a smile. You'll understand soon? The wind picked up again, sudden, sharp. Isaiah blinked against it. When he opened his eyes, the stranger was still there, standing, watching, hands in his pockets now. But something had changed. The air, the light, the weight of the moment. Isaiah's chest felt different. Not warmer, not fuller, but not as empty. He looked at his hands again, still blue-white, still stiff. But the trembling had stopped. The dog whimpered, soft. Isaiah looked down. It was staring up at him, eyes dark and tired, but alive. Alive because of him. Isaiah's breath came out in a shaky cloud. He didn't understand what was happening, didn't understand the stranger or his words or the way the air had changed. But something had shifted, something he couldn't name. He looked back at the stranger. The man nodded once, then turned, started walking toward the path that led out of the park. Isaiah watched him go, his body too cold and too tired to follow, too confused to call out. The stranger's footsteps crunched on the frozen grass, then stopped. He turned back one last time. It's not over, Sergeant. The words hung in the air. Then the man walked on, into the gray light, into the cold. Isaiah sat there, the dog warm against his leg, his empty hands resting on his knees. The park was silent again, but this time the silence felt different, like it was waiting for something, this moment right here. Do you believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, is seen? Comment yes if you believe someone is always watching. Isaiah watched the stranger walk away, 10 feet, 20, the footsteps steady on the frozen path. Then they stopped. The stranger turned, fully, faced Isaiah across the empty park. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The dog shifted against Isaiah's leg, a small whimper. The stranger walked back, slow, deliberate, each step crunching the dead grass. He stopped 3 feet from the bench. Then he straightened. His right hand came up, clean, precise, fingers together, extended adjoined, thumb alongside the palm, wrist straight, hand angled exactly 45 degrees to meet the outer edge of his right eyebrow. A salute, military, perfect, regulation. Isaiah's breath caught. He hadn't seen a salute like that in 50 years. Not since his discharge ceremony. Not since the flag presentation at Sarah's funeral. The stranger held it. Didn't rush. 3 full seconds. Then he lowered his hand, sharp, controlled. Sergeant. The word came quiet, but it filled the space between them. Isaiah's hands gripped his knees, his whole body locked. That salute, that word, they weren't casual, weren't guesses, they were recognition. The stranger's eyes held his, calm, certain. Sergeant Isaiah Brennan, United States Army, Bravo Company. Isaiah's vision tunneled. The edges went gray. How? Honorably discharged. February 14th, 1975. Isaiah's throat closed. His chest tightened so hard he couldn't breathe. Nobody knew that. Not anymore. The papers burned. The VA lost the records. Even the shelter volunteers didn't know his full name. He was just Isaiah, just another homeless vet. But this man, the stranger, tilted his head slightly. His expression didn't change. Still calm, still kind. You served with honor, he said. You carried that honor through everything that came after. Isaiah's hands started shaking again. Through the loss, through the fire, through 5 years on these streets. The fire. Isaiah's chest seized. The stranger took 1 step closer. His voice dropped, softer now. 5 years ago, November 9th, 3:17 in the morning. Isaiah's heart hammered. His pulse roared in his ears. The wiring in the wall, old building, the flames moved fast. No. Isaiah's head shook, small, involuntary. You woke to smoke, got Sarah to the window, helped her down the fire escape. Stop. But you went back in. Isaiah's breath came in short gasps. His vision blurred. The stranger's eyes never left his face. The firefighters told you not to, said the building was coming down, but you went back in anyway. Isaiah's hands curled into fists, his nails dug into his palms. You went back in for the photo, the one of Sarah. The world tilted. Isaiah's legs gave out. His knees hit the frozen ground, hard. The impact shot up his thighs, but he didn't feel it. The photo, the one thing he'd saved. Sarah's smile, the edges burned. The only proof she'd existed, the only proof they'd existed together. Nobody knew that. The firefighters had pulled him out, yelled at him, called him reckless, called him stupid. One of them said he had a death wish, but none of them knew what he'd gone back for. He'd never told anyone, not the Red Cross workers, not the shelter staff, not the VA counselor who'd tried to help him file for emergency housing. Nobody. Isaiah's breath came in ragged pulls. His chest heaved. The stranger crouched down, slow, eye level now. You thought no one saw, he said quietly, but you were wrong. Isaiah's throat burned, his eyes stung. Every step you took, every choice you made, every time you got back up when the world knocked you down. A sound escaped Isaiah's lips, broken, raw. Someone was watching, Sergeant. The tears came then, hot against his frozen face. Isaiah couldn't stop them, couldn't hold them back. The stranger reached out, rested a hand on Isaiah's shoulder. The touch was light, but it felt like an anchor. You didn't lose your honor when you lost your home. You didn't lose your worth when you lost your proof. Isaiah's whole body shook, not from cold, from something breaking open inside him. You've been seen this whole time. The words landed like stones in deep water, heavy, true. Isaiah's head dropped, his shoulders folded forward. 50 years of carrying weight he didn't know he was carrying. The stranger's hand stayed on his shoulder, steady. It's not over, he said again. You'll understand soon. Isaiah tried to speak. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. When he finally looked up, the stranger was standing again. He gave Isaiah one last look. Something passed across his face. Not pity, not sympathy, peace. Then he turned, started walking toward the path. Isaiah watched through blurred vision, the man's coat dark against the gray sky, his steps steady. The snow started falling, light, soft, the first flakes of the afternoon. The stranger reached the edge of the park, where the path curved into the street. Isaiah blinked, tried to clear his eyes, wiped his face with his sleeve. When he looked again, the stranger was gone. Isaiah's breath stopped. The path was empty. He pushed himself up. His knees screamed. His legs barely held him. But he stood. He scanned the park, left, right. The trees were bare, no place to hide. The path ran straight for 30 feet before it curved. Nobody could have rounded that corner that fast. The snow fell harder now, already dusting the ground. Isaiah took 3 steps forward, then 5 more. His boots crunched the frost. He reached the curve in the path, looked down the street beyond, empty, no figure walking away, no dark coat disappearing into the distance, just parked cars, a closed storefront, A bus stop with nobody waiting. Isaiah turned in a slow circle. The park stretched out around him, brown grass, bare benches, skeletal trees. No footprints in the fresh snow except his own. His heart pounded. He looked back at his bench. The dog still sat there, watching him, real, solid. But the other bench, the one where the stranger had been sitting, was empty. Isaiah walked back, slow, each step deliberate. He reached the stranger's bench, ran his hand along the cold metal slats. Still warm, not hot, but warm, like someone had been sitting there moments ago. Isaiah's hand trembled against the metal. He looked at the ground beneath the bench. The snow had started to cover it, but there, faint impressions, shoe prints, proof that someone had been there. Isaiah's legs gave out again. He sat down hard on his own bench. The dog immediately pressed against him. He stared at the empty path, at the fallen snow, at the warm metal across from him. His mind tried to make sense of it, tried to find logic, but there was none. The man had known things, impossible things, and then he'd vanished, not walked away, not hidden, vanished. Isaiah's hands went to his coat pockets, automatic, looking for something to ground himself. His right hand closed around the photo of Sarah, the burned edges, her smile. He pulled it out, looked at her face through the plastic sleeve he'd wrapped it in years ago. The stranger had known about this, had known Isaiah went back into the fire for it, had known the exact date, the exact time. Isaiah's throat tightened. He looked up at the gray sky, snow falling into his face, melting on his cheeks, mixing with tears he didn't remember shedding. "Who are you?" he whispered. The wind took his words. No answer came, just the snow, the cold, the dog's warmth against his leg, and the impossible warmth still radiating from the empty bench across from him. Isaiah sat frozen on the bench. His mind kept circling back, the salute, the impossible knowledge, the empty path. The dog whined, pressed closer against his leg. Isaiah's hand moved to rest on its head again, the warmth, the proof that something real still existed. Then he felt it, heat, against his left side, near his ribs. Isaiah's breath caught. He looked down at his coat, the left pocket, the one with the hole in the bottom, the one he'd stopped using months ago because everything fell through. The heat was coming from there. His hand moved slow, trembling. He reached into the pocket. His fingers touched something, warm, solid, wrapped in paper. Isaiah's heart kicked against his ribs. He pulled it out. A burger, wrapped in yellow paper. Grease spots bleeding through. Steam rising from the edges where the paper didn't quite close. Isaiah's hand shook so hard he nearly dropped it. The smell hit him. Grilled onions, beef, melted cheese, fresh bread. His stomach twisted, cramped so hard he doubled forward. He stared at the burger in his hands. Hot, real, impossible. His pocket had a hole in the bottom. He'd lost gloves through it, a pen, coins. Everything fell straight through to the lining. But this had stayed. Isaiah's breath came fast, shallow, his vision blurred at the edges. He looked at the dog. It was staring at the burger, ears up, tail thumping once against the bench. Real. The dog saw it too. Isaiah's hands unwrapped the paper, slow, like the burger might vanish if he moved too fast. The steam rose thicker, the smell stronger. A burger, a full burger, sesame seed bun, lettuce, tomato, 2 patties, cheese melted and dripping. Isaiah's throat closed. He turned the burger over in his hands. No restaurant logo, no receipt, no explanation, Just yellow paper and steam and food that shouldn't exist. His torn pocket, the warm bench across from him, the stranger who knew impossible things. The pieces didn't fit, but the heat in his hands was undeniable. The dog pressed against his leg, whined, softer now. Isaiah looked down at it, the ribs still showing, the matted fur, the eyes locked on the burger. Something broke in Isaiah's chest. He unwrapped the burger completely. The paper crinkled. The steam rose into the cold air. His hands moved before his mind caught up. He broke the burger in half. The cheese stretched between the pieces. The smell intensified. He held out one half toward the dog. The dog didn't lunge, didn't snatch, just leaned forward, gentle, took the food from Isaiah's hand. Then ate, slower this time, not desperate, savoring. Isaiah lifted the other half to his mouth. He bit down. The taste exploded. Salt, fat, warmth, the beef juicy, the onion sweet and charred, the cheese sharp. Isaiah's eyes filled. He chewed, swallowed. The food hit his empty stomach like a coal dropped into snow. Heat spreading outward, into his chest, his limbs. He took another bite, then another. The dog finished its half, licked its muzzle, looked up at Isaiah. Isaiah broke off a piece of his remaining portion, held it out. The dog took it, gentle again. They ate together, passing the food back and forth. Isaiah's tears running hot down his frozen face. The dog's tail wagging, steady now, stronger. The burger was gone too fast. Isaiah licked the grease from his fingers, tasted the salt, the proof. He sat back, his stomach full for the first time in days, the warmth spreading deeper now, into his bones, into the hollow spaces. The dog climbed onto the bench beside him, curled against his side, its body warm and heavy. Isaiah's arm came around it, held it close. The snow fell around them, soft, quiet, the park empty except for them. Isaiah looked at the yellow paper in his lap, grease-stained, real. He looked at the dog, breathing steady, real. He looked at his left pocket, the one with the hole, the one that shouldn't have held anything, but had. Isaiah's chest heaved. A sound escaped his throat. Half sob, half laugh. He pressed his face into the dog's fur, felt the warmth, the life. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice cracked. "Thank you." He didn't know who he was talking to, but he said it anyway. The wind carried his words away. Into the falling snow, into the gray sky, and somewhere, somehow, Isaiah felt certain someone heard. The warmth stayed with Isaiah long after the burger was gone. He sat on the bench, the dog curled against him, the snow falling steady now, covering the park in white. His stomach was full, his chest felt lighter, but his mind still circled the impossible. The stranger, the salute, the burger in a torn pocket. Isaiah looked down at the dog. It was sleeping, its breathing deep and even, the first real rest it had probably had in weeks. He stroked its head, gentle, the matted fur rough under his palm. Then he saw it, on the bench beside him, where the dog had been sitting before it climbed into his lap. A white envelope. Isaiah's hand stopped mid-stroke. He hadn't seen it before, hadn't noticed it when he sat down, when he unwrapped the burger, when he fed the dog, but it was there now, crisp, clean, standing out against the dark wood and fresh snow. Isaiah's breath caught. He reached for it, slow, his fingers still stiff from the cold but steadier now. Warmer. He picked it up. The paper was thick, quality. Not the thin stuff from the VA office or the shelter intake forms. His name was written on the front, not printed, written in careful block letters, Sergeant Isaiah Brennan. Isaiah's throat tightened. He turned the envelope over. No seal, just a flap tucked in. He opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded once, and something else, metal, heavy. Isaiah pulled out the paper first, unfolded it. His hands started shaking. DD Form 214, Certificate of Release or Discharge from Active Duty. His discharge papers. Isaiah's vision blurred. He blinked hard, focused on the text, his name, his service number, his dates of service. His rank, Sergeant, United States Army, Bravo Company, honorably discharged, February 14th, 1975. Every detail correct, every line exactly as he remembered, but that wasn't possible. These papers had burned 5 years ago in the fire. He'd watched them curl and blacken in the flames when he ran back in for Sarah's photo. The VA said they'd send replacements, but they never came. He'd called, waited, called again, then gave up. No papers meant no benefits, no proof meant no help. But here, Isaiah's hands trembled so hard the paper rustled. He lifted the document to his face, looked closer. The paper was pristine, crisp, like it had just been printed yesterday. But in the corner, a small brown mark, irregular, rough-edged. Isaiah's breath stopped. He brought the paper to his nose, inhaled. Smoke, old smoke, faint but unmistakable. The smell of burned wood and melted plastic and 5 years of loss. Isaiah's chest seized. He turned the paper over. The back was clean except for one corner, the same corner as the mark on the front. Singed. The edge was darker, crisped, like it had been touched by flame and pulled back just in time. Isaiah's hands dropped to his lap, the paper clutched between his stiff fingers. This was his original document, not a replacement, not a reprint, the same paper that had burned, but here, whole, real. Isaiah's breath came in short gasps. His chest heaved. He looked at the envelope again, reached inside. His fingers closed around metal. He pulled it out. A key, brass, new. A white tag attached with a string. Isaiah held it up, read the tag. Veteran Haven Apartments Unit 3B paid in full. Isaiah's hand closed around the key. The metal bit into his palm. An apartment, his apartment, paid for. He looked back in the envelope. One more piece of paper, smaller, folded. He pulled it out, unfolded it with shaken hands. A receipt, official letterhead, Veteran Haven Housing Services. Balance $0 status, paid in full move-in date. Today, Isaiah's vision went white at the edges. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was holding. His DD-214, proof of service, proof of honor, pulled from ashes that had consumed it 5 years ago. A key, a home, paid for by hands he'd never seen. Isaiah's chest broke open. The sound that came out of him was raw, broken. 50 years of carrying weight, 5 years of sleeping on concrete, 3 days of hunger. All of it pouring out in one cracked sob. He pressed the papers to his chest, held the key so tight it left an imprint in his palm. Thank you, his voice barely a whisper. Thank you. He said it again, louder. Thank you. The dog stirred in his lap, looked up at him, its brown eyes calm. Isaiah's tears fell hot on the dog's head, on the papers clutched to his chest, on the key that represented a door he could open, a place that was his. He didn't know who he was thanking, but the words kept coming. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. His voice broke. His shoulders shook. The snow fell around them, soft, quiet. The park empty except for an old veteran and a stray dog and a miracle held between scarred hands. Isaiah looked down at the DD-214 again, at his name in official type, at the singed corner that shouldn't exist, at the proof that his empty hands had been filled, not with food alone, with identity, with dignity, with home. His mother's voice echoed one more time. When your hands are empty, that's when you got room to catch blessings. Isaiah finally understood. The apartment was small, one room, kitchenette in the corner, bathroom through a narrow door, a window that looked out over the street. But it was warm. Isaiah stood in the doorway, the key still in his hand. The dog, Hope, he'd started calling her, pressed against his leg. He'd walked here in a daze, the address on the receipt, 6 blocks from the park, his feet moving on autopilot while his mind tried to catch up to what was happening. The key had worked. The door had opened, and inside, furniture, a bed with clean sheets, a small table, 2 chairs, a rug on the floor, not new, but clean, cared for, his. Isaiah took one step inside, then another. Hope followed. Her claws clicked on the hardwood. He closed the door behind them. The sound of it latching felt final, safe. The heating vent hummed. Warm air poured into the room. Isaiah stood in front of it. Let the heat wash over his face, his hands, his chest. For the first time in 5 years, he wasn't cold. Hope explored, sniffing corners, the table legs, the rug. Then she circled 3 times and lay down, right in the middle of the rug, in a patch of sunlight coming through the window. She was asleep in seconds. Isaiah watched her, the rise and fall of her ribs, steady, peaceful. He looked around the apartment again, took it in. A small counter separated the kitchenette from the main room. On it, a note, handwritten. Isaiah crossed to it, picked it up. Welcome home, Sergeant. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. Isaiah set the note down, his hand shaking. He pulled the DD-214 from his coat pocket, unfolded it carefully. The singed corner, the smell of old smoke, his proof. He looked at the walls, bare except for one nail, already there, like it had been waiting. Isaiah found tape in a drawer. He didn't question how it was there, didn't question any of it anymore. He taped the DD-214 to the wall, next to the nail, centered it, stepped back. Sergeant Isaiah Brennan, United States Army, honorably discharged. The words looked right there. Official, true. Isaiah's throat tightened. He reached into his other pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. He'd found it in the apartment, on the table, with a pen beside it. He unfolded it. Read the words printed at the top. Hebrews the 13:2. Below it, the verse written out in the same careful handwriting as the welcome note. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Isaiah read it twice, 3 times, angels. He thought about the stranger, the salute, the impossible knowledge, the way he'd vanished into falling snow. Isaiah's hands trembled as he taped the verse to the wall, below the DD-214, where he'd see it every day. He stepped back, looked at both papers hanging there, his identity, his reminder. Hope stirred on the rug, stretched, then settled again, still sleeping. Isaiah moved to the kitchenette, opened the cabinet, 2 bowls, 2 plates, 2 cups. He filled both bowls with water from the tap, set them on the floor, side by side, one for him, one for Hope. He stood there, looking at the bowls, at the dog sleeping in the sunlight, at the papers on the wall, at the home he'd been given. Isaiah's legs gave out. He didn't try to catch himself, just let himself sink. knees hitting the floor, hands coming together, fingers interlacing. He bowed his head, his lips moved, silent at first, then whispered, "Thank you." The words were simple, insufficient, but they were all he had. Thank you for seeing me, for remembering me, for not letting me disappear. His voice cracked. Thank you for the stranger, for the food, for this place, for hope. He said the dog's name, and it felt right. More than a name, a statement, a promise. I don't understand why, don't understand how, but thank you. Isaiah's shoulders shook. His head dropped lower. Help me be worthy of this. Help me remember. Help me see others the way you saw me. The room was quiet except for Hope's breathing, the hum of the heater, the soft sound of Isaiah's prayers. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in white, covering the park bench where an old veteran had given away his last meal, covering the path where a stranger had disappeared into impossible air. The sun broke through the clouds, a single beam cutting through the window, lighting up the papers on the wall, the bowls on the floor, the old man kneeling in prayer. Isaiah stayed there, hands clasped, head bowed, tears falling onto the clean floor of his new home. Outside, the world kept moving, but inside, for the first time in 5 years, Isaiah Brennan was still and warm and home. The hand that gives when it is empty is the hand that God fills first. Do you believe that every good deed you do is recorded, that every act of kindness, no matter how small, is seen? Share this story, and may God bless you.